Godzilla King of the Monsters is the long-awaited sequel to the 2014 Godzilla film, and this is one of the movies that I was excited to see this year because I'm a pretty big fan of Godzilla. Have been a fan since I was a little kid. As far as Godzilla 2014, I felt like it was such a great film, and it gave Godzilla an amazing new redesign and had a nice set of characters played by an amazing, well-picked cast, such as Aaron Taylor Johnson, Bryan Cranston, and Elizabeth Olsen. So, King of the Monsters takes place about 5 years after the original film, and Godzilla is rising up again while other monsters are starting to awaken from hibernation all across the globe. These monsters include Mothra, the beautiful insect creature, Rodan, the fiery pterodon, and, of course, Godzilla's arch rival, King Ghidorah, the three-headed dragon. One of the biggest complaints that a lot of people seem to have about Godzilla 2014 is that there was not enough monster action. In other words, there weren't enough scenes where Godzilla or Mutos were destroying all kinds of cities or fighting each other. I mean, there were scenes that included that, but for the most part, it was just in the second half of the film. But this film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, seems to be trying to correct that, but at the same time, it doesn't. Not much. I felt like not enough work was put into the human characters in this film, which I felt was kind of a shame because this film it did have a pretty good cast in this as well, such as Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things, Vera Farmiga from the Conjuring franchise, and Charles Dance, who played Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones. And now I felt like it did correct one issue, but at the same time, in the process, it kind of caused a different problem. With the human characters. I felt like this film is kind of struggling to maintain that kind of a balance while trying to correct the issue that a lot of people have had with the first film. And but I will say this: the monsters were amazingly well done. And so while everyone is trying to keep track of these monsters and also to keep people out of the path of their destruction, Godzilla and Ghidorah are facing off in a fight for supremacy, while Ghidorah wants to destroy all of humanity, and Godzilla is just out to get him. Now, even though I did think the previous film was a little bit better, I do like how this film has several nods that it makes towards elements from previous Godzilla films. For example, there is one point of the film where Godzilla builds up this radiation it builds up enough because as a lot of Godzilla fans know, radiation is Godzilla's source of power, and the more radiation he has, the more powerful he is. So there is one point where Godzilla builds up enough radiation to fight King Ghidorah, and he starts to glow red from having a maximum amount of radiation running through his body, and as a result was on the verge of a nuclear meltdown. And this is pretty similar to how Godzilla was in Godzilla vs. Destroya, which I believe was back in the mid-90s, if I'm remembering this correctly, where Godzilla had this glowing redness from radioactive buildup that he's had throughout the film. But there is one reference that I was pretty iffy towards. It was the scene where the Admiral would decide to use an oxygen destroyer against Godzilla and Ghidorah as they were fighting underwater. Now, the oxygen destroyer was introduced in the original Godzilla film in 1954. It was a destructive weapon that was invented by Dr. Serizawa. The oxygen destroyer was portrayed as this kind of weapon that was even more dangerous than the nuclear bomb, and Dr. Serizawa was just afraid that it would end up falling into the wrong hands. He was so afraid of the idea of it that he sacrificed his life to not only kill Godzilla, but also so that the knowledge of the oxygen destroyer of how to make one dies with him. So, considering the strong message, the very dark message that the original film had about the oxygen destroyer, I just think it's very strange how they could just throw something like that into this film without any kind of buildup. It's just like, hey, we got an oxygen destroyer, we're just about to use it. I just feel like it just takes away the seriousness, all the kind of tone that the original Godzilla film had when it came to the oxygen destroyer. I feel like, if you're just going to throw in the oxygen destroyer into this film, at least have some kind of a build-up to it, like maybe some kind of a conflict about, this big conflict about the creation to events, maybe create some kind of events that lead to the creation of the oxygen destroyer and have some character conflicts about it, rather than just throwing it in there just for the sake of, oh, I remember that, I felt like that could have been done differently. One thing that I did find pretty crazy about this film, as far as Dr. Serizawa's death, was that he sacrificed himself to make Godzilla stronger, as opposed to the original Dr. Serizawa in the first Godzilla film. He sacrificed his life to kill Godzilla. So, pretty crazy twist there. So, Godzilla King of the Monsters, it's almost on par with the first film. I mean, it did have several flaws, but overall, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. So, I'm giving Godzilla King of the Monsters a 6.5 out of 10. So, guys, thank you so much for watching my review for Godzilla King of the Monsters. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like button if you did. And be sure to subscribe for more reviews and more reaction videos. So, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!